backup, sync, and archive for creative workflows with Archiware and Backblaze. And with me today is Skip Levens. I'm Dr. Marc Batschkus, Business Development Manager at Archiware, and Skip Levens is Director, Product Marketing at Backblaze. Hello, Skip.
Hello and good morning. And yes, indeed, we are from sunny California, where it's bright and early in the morning. And what time is it there in Germany?
It's 6 p.m. in Germany and still sunny.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for having me. You and I have done several webinars in the past, and I got to say they are a tremendous amount of fun and a great chance to sort of draw out from you some of the best practices and things that your customers discover and how they use different tools to be more effective. So I was very excited as this webinar came together. Wonderful. So thank you again for having me.
You're welcome.
So if I may, let me kick it off and maybe set the stage for creative workflows in general. And I know we're going to talk about backup and archive and even sync and how they fit in these, but this basic creative workflow here I think is familiar to everyone. And it follows a traditional model, which is we ingest from very high resolution content, we get it into our work in process or a shared storage where our editors can do craft editing, can edit it down, finally deliver the product for the individual job, and it could be a webisode, a TV episode, a film even, but today it could be all of those all at once, and all of the content from the very large first resolution files and all the subsequent files and all the variations and everything else are typically all archived and tucked away in a project folder, because especially in this day and age when deadline pressure is getting shorter, the resolution sizes are getting bigger, and there's a lot of pressure on creative teams to reuse content and monetize it and make it into different formats and different vehicles. It may go into an app, on a website, a trailer, etc. So a lot of pressure to reuse it. So all of this content needs to be put in an archive where it can be readily retrieved, but it must also be protected. So let's talk about the first one. So all of the content that is captured and is used day to day on workstations, on shared storage, think now if that was lost on any one of your workstations, that would be a serious delay as you're getting the workstation back up and running, and and possible loss of time in creating that project. So this is a point of protection. So we need to protect work in process and ideally be able to ramp up a lost workstation or even a new workstation and upgrade it very quickly. So this is one point of focus. Another is the point of archive. And this is where, as I say, oftentimes if a team only has shared storage, as they're growing, they'll have to try to put all that archive on their shared storage. Well, that has a few problems. One is that it's not as well protected as if it was on true archive or preservation class storage. And all of those assets are incredibly valuable. You went through a lot of effort to create them and manage and store them. But the other problem is that on shared storage, they're taking up a lot of space. So at the point of archive, we want to protect all those assets, keep those project folders safe, but keep them available so that we can instantly pull that content back in and reuse them. And ideally, in a perfect world, we could keep it off of our shared storage and offsite, as Dr. Marc will explain some of the best practices later, because that will keep our shared storage very lean. It'll mean we don't have to overbuy shared storage, and it's kept as fast as possible.
Yeah, thank you, Skip. I'd like to take a step back and just look very briefly at the underlying processes. So backup is a duplication of data that is still used for daily production. So the things you're still working on, that's work in progress and that you have usually on your production storage or your shared storage. Whereas archive is a migration of finished production. So that's what you migrate away for long-term protection, for reuse, reference, and so on, for returning customers. But you don't want to have that on the high-performance production storage. So it's a migration, and you delete it after the archive process. And there's another process which is called sync or synchronization, which is a way to either keep datasets identical in two locations or have a failover solution. So you have a main storage like a main SAN system or production storage and replicate that to a secondary storage. So in case something goes wrong, you just have a failover or switchover process and don't have to wait for any restore runtime. So those are the three main processes we are addressing here. And I would like to compare now briefly backup and archive. So where backup is a duplication of data used for daily production, the archive is the migration of finished productions. The backup is a cyclic process that overwrites itself after you reach the specified retention time. And storage will be recycled then for a new backup, whereas an archive is usually a forever growing process. The backup has a short to mid-term storage perspective, where archive definitely has a long-term storage perspective. And the most important thing, both are needed and one cannot replace the other. So you need a protection for ongoing production and you need a protection for everything that has been produced before.
Perfect. And those two work together. One doesn't impinge on the other at all.
Exactly. And they don't overlap because it's either in the backup or it's in the archive. And there's basically no overlap because it's either or. Either you work on it or you finished it.
Perfect.
Yeah. There is a checklist that I want to help you with planning and structuring your processes because there are lots of details that are hidden and that some people discover too late. So let's go through that here in more detail. One important thing is to centralize and automate as many operations as possible. Only automatic operations help you to protect your data. The thing where people try to do that manually, they would have to think of it, they would have to be reminded, there might be a holiday, there might be some urgent production kicking in. Only an automated process can actually have the frequency and the reliability that you want to have a reliable backup. Then there's a famous and relatively simple 3-2-1 rule, which means you should have 3 copies of each important file in production on 2 different media, which could be disk or cloud, it could be tape or cloud, it could be disk and tape, but 2 different media technologies here, and at least 1 copy should be stored off-site. Only this off-site copy helps you in case something goes wrong on a specific location. And I want to add a little story here of a production company that had to deliver a movie theater production, and they came to their office Monday morning. Everything was ready. They completed it last week, and the police had blocked the whole street because there was a gas leakage. So they didn't even have, there was nothing happening to their office. It wasn't even touched, but they couldn't get to their office. If they would have had an offsite copy, they would have access to deliver the file in time, but this way they had to wait for 3 days because they couldn't get back to their office. So the offsite copy might be the thing to finally save you in case something goes wrong that is impacting your location, whatever that might be. Backup and archive should be planned in a way that it's not impacting production in any way. So runtime, throughputs, bandwidth should be taken into consideration, your CPU load and things like that. So either you do it overnight or you have a time frame where there's no production going on, you do it over the weekend, whatever it is, but you have to take into consideration that ongoing production is protected and still the backup and archive is run. Maintenance is important and somebody should be behind the logs. In the logs, you get messages of maybe something went wrong, maybe there was a connection missing, maybe there was an interruption, maybe there was a little error, maybe there was a big error, but somebody has to be behind that on a regular basis, otherwise you might notice it too late. And it also helps to have very clear assignments and responsibilities so that the operators know exactly what they are in charge of, being it archiving, maintenance, restoring, or whatever it is. But it needs to be clearly assigned so that in the end everyone can fulfill his task and there is a proper procedure for everything. Regular training of users of the current workflow and documentation is an important step so that everyone can look up for what is happening now, or where's the backup and how often it is run. Do I have to do anything as a user? Do I have to initialize it? How do I start this and that procedure? Very important also for disaster recovery to document how you set up the whole server setup and storage setup again, IP settings, storage, and so on, so that somebody can look it up independently of the machine, of course. So if you have that documentation online on your storage, it doesn't help if the storage is not visible anymore. The archived content should be traceable through a documented procedure so that there's a clear-cut responsibility when and if somebody sends something to archive, that he either notifies somebody or he puts it in some documentation so that the archive process as such is traceable. The equipment should be, of course, updated and covering the present needs and also be scalable for future requirements. I hope that makes sense to plan ahead enough so that you see, okay, today we need this and that, but next year we might need more storage. It's always more than you can plan for. And you should take that into consideration when you buy something so that is expandable and could cover future needs. And the workflow, something that's very important under high pressure, has been fully tested before deployment. So it should be robust and clearly tested before it is deployed. And something very important, which should be part of a routine, is that the restore is tested regularly, for instance, monthly, so that you can definitely say the process is working of writing a backup and restoring files. So the storage is working, connection is working, all the files are there. And this is the key to having a valid archive and backup so that you can actually rely on it.
Absolutely. Well, in fact, just a few comments, similar to your story where physical access was blocked. Something, I mean, you could hardly plan for that and hardly put that in your schedule. But absolutely, many cases, we've had terrible weather, big storms. Like, who would think downtown Manhattan would lose power for several days, or have 3 feet of water for 3 days? I mean, so stuff like this happens. So I got to say, this is one of the clearest and shortest rules. And the restore one is the one I've always felt that you can have the perfect backup system in the world, but it doesn't matter if you aren't confident that you can restore that content, and that really is the proof point, isn't it? To make sure that all that hard work you're doing is will pay off when, as you say, the pressure's on.
Yeah. So, and how do you find out which solution is right for you, and how do you segment your data to have the right solution protecting the right part of your data? So if you have time-critical stuff, how long can you be without your data? If you have time-critical files that you can only live without for minutes, then you definitely need a data availability or failover solution that doesn't require a restore process, but requires only a switching process from storage A to storage B. And Archiware P5 Synchronize is the solution for that. So this can clone a NAS storage, a SAN storage, any production storage from a primary to a secondary storage, so that you have that always available in case something goes wrong, and you have the complete data set immediately available and not having any runtime incurred while you need access to it.
Perfect. And that could be from one, say, production center, like say that could be from LA to Munich or London, et cetera, for example?
Yeah, that's true. So Synchronize works also over WAN connections, but in case of a high performance production storage, that doesn't make much sense because probably most people will not have access to pipelines that are fast enough to then use the secondary location as their production storage. So it's usually direct attached storage that you have, like on the fiber channel connection or Thunderbolt connection or something, that you have a secondary lower price but still fast storage available that is on-prem so that you have maximum throughput for ongoing production. But data distribution or having it additionally synced to a remote location or syncing with them for having the same data set available is also possible with P5 Synchronize.
Gotcha.
So less critical data, where you have a tolerance of 1 or several hours, because there might be a runtime to get it back, is backed up to disk, tape, or B2 cloud storage, for instance. This is, as I said before, a cyclic process, but there is a restore runtime involved. So you press restore, you want to get a directory back, and then you wait for, depending on how big it is, for several minutes or maybe an hour, maybe longer.
Mm-hmm.
So you need the tolerance here. And everything that has been completed, like projects from last year, financial data from last year is the third category, which is long-term archiving. And archiving, actually, not everybody thinks about it that way, is not only long-term preservation, it is also the source of maybe additional income. It's always great to have when returning customers are there and want to see their projects from years ago, and you pull it out and say, oh, here's the footage that we created already. They can give you more business when you can build on top of that, or you might be able to license it once it's very specific content that might be unique or in a unique location that's not easily accessible. So it might be another revenue stream here that's available, but it's always also reassuring for returning customers and for your own reference, of course, to see what you've done before. And of course, for legal compliance to be able to show what you've done and deliver to a customer.
Absolutely. I'd only tag on that that archive traditionally has been thought of as a place to literally check something into an archive, meaning it's preserved with very high, say, file integrity and durability, it used to be, say, the salt mines or the Iron Mountain, that sort of thing. But today that's probably digital, and as you say, that archive can be used. The individual assets in the archive can also be used as well with Archiware P5, and that was a subject of an earlier webinar of ours, wasn't it?
Yeah, and the advantage is that a P5 archive can serve as kind of a mini MAM interface to your archive. So you have proxy clips, media thumbnails, you have extensible metadata fields and menus. So the features are quite rich for an archive, and it might be easier to use than you think, and more visual than traditional archives have ever been.
Yeah, very nice solution.
So here it is again. Archiware P5 is a suite that contains all those modules, P5 Backup, P5 Synchronize, P5 Archive that we mentioned. So it's one installer package that brings all those modules to your machine, and then you can license them either individually or in packages and bundles depending on your needs.
Wonderful. And I have to say, as a solution, P5 with whichever modules you need, but very likely both backup and archive, as Dr. Mark said, is paired perfectly with Backblaze because it satisfies many of those initial criteria. It is by definition off of your site, yet it satisfies extremely high durability, calculated out to 11 nines. It's very inexpensive storage. I mean, imagine if $5 a terabyte, as large as your asset library needs to grow, it's there on tap whenever you need it. And so it's very tightly integrated with the P5 suite. In fact, our rapid ingest service, Fireball, is also integrated with the P5 suite as well. So there's very nice integration between the two tools, and together, the P5 suite and Backblaze cloud storage that grows as large as you need it, is very inexpensive at $5 a terabyte, is really an ideal solution that will help keep your costs under control, be a really critical part of your backup and archive strategy. And one of the really clever things you can do very quickly in a matter of a few minutes is do a pilot of this combined solution. For the B2 side of that, it's as simple as going to backblaze.com, select B2 and sign up. And then once you sign in, you can generate what are called application keys. And you can create these storage targets called buckets. So in this particular case, I've created one for Archiware, and I'll use this for my main archive. So you simply create a bucket, and if you'll notice, it then gives you a key, which is the name of the key and the actual key itself, which is a string of letters. With just these two pieces of information from my account, I can now integrate everything that Archiware P5 is backing up and archiving to those individual folders, and it's as simple as that. And over on the Archiware side,
yes, you just download the 30-day trial of the P5 suite at p5.archiware.com, which gives you this installer package that I mentioned that contains all the modules. And then after the installer is run, the browser opens automatically, and you can request a trial license from within the interface. And once you did that, you see that the modules are colored now, so everything is available in the trial license. And you can start with the setup assistant of here, like in this case, archive, could also be backup, or the other modules. We help you with setup assistants that give you a minimum number of questions to answer, and then you're good to go. So there's the cloud wizard here that helps you to set up Backblaze B2 storage. And you have default settings here, so you don't have to actually change anything here, and press apply. And then you enter the credentials for the specific B2 account. And
test the connection.
yeah, and then it tests the connection, and then you see, okay, you're connected. This is it already. After that, you can use it, and it builds your catalog. You can configure how you want to access it. There's lots of details under the hood here. You can segment your archive. You can say we have one department, I don't know, maybe financial data, or maybe specific business stuff, or maybe production and promotion separated, so you can have multiple archives configured. You can specify specific, we call it login area, so where people have a specific point where they jump into an archive catalog directory and don't see what is left and right of that, and lots of other details that you can configure, but the basic configuration is really done in minutes. Yeah, and that brings us back to the checklist for backup and archive, which is a bit complex, I have to admit, but the whole thing is a responsible task and needs to be addressed in that way. And so let's go through that again quickly. So centralize and automate as much as possible, though please do not rely on any manual operations, especially not for backup.
P5, it looks like there were a number of places where you can put them on a regular rotating schedule. that then takes care of this for you.
Yeah, exactly. And used a simple 3-2-1 rule to remind you of having 3 copies of each file on 2 different media and 1 copy offsite. If you do that, you have a very solid protection scheme that helps you in case something goes wrong. And things go wrong. And it's not just the nature catastrophe, it's the regular mishaps, the renaming of files, the accidentally deleting directories, the pushing things over a network into nowhere, and maybe losing track of where a file is. It might be still there, but you don't find it anymore. Stuff like that happens every day.
In fact, many clients that increasingly are having multiple locations, or you have temporary staff, one of the complaints I hear often before people adopt B2 and an archive solution is, well, they accidentally deleted something and now we have to go find it and restore it and pull it back. But it's much, much simpler and much less hectic, and a lot less downtime lost when you have a tool in place.
Yeah. Yeah, and please take into account your production time windows. If there are windows left over, there is no production going on, then this is a good time for backup and archive jobs. If not, you might need a separate, maybe part of a network or a separate server to take care of that, so that there's no negative impact on ongoing production. Keep an eye on maintenance. Somebody should be in charge of checking the logs and have a clear assignment of what he is in charge of, so that things are in good hands and everyone knows what he is responsible of. Then please keep your users also on track and regular training, and document things for them. So what do they have to initialize? Is there a process that they have to kick off, or do they have to notify somebody if they're doing this and that? Very important to keep the flow of information here transparent, and also keep the content and the jobs traceable, so that you know what has been archived and by whom, and to or what archive plan or storage. And keep your equipment up to date for present and future needs. Keep it scalable. If you shop for things, even if it's cheaper, resist the temptation to buy something that's cheap but just fulfills today's needs and is not scalable, doesn't help you, then you have to replace it. Might take hours to copy things back and forth and reinstall something new. So plan ahead and buy scalable storage devices. That makes a lot of sense.
And I would humbly say that this is one of the core benefits of cloud, is that it can scale as large as you need, and then if you scale it back down, you only pay for what you need, and there isn't this notion of having to do these sort of what they call forklift upgrades, where, well, I'm going from 100 terabytes, I can't get to 200 terabytes without essentially throwing away my old system and buying an entirely new one. At least for the cloud can help satisfy a lot of that as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's just pay as you go, and you only have the cost that of the storage size that you need right now, and it grows as it grows. But there's no big thresholds, basically, like you have with physical installations. Yeah, and do please take seriously the testing of the setup and testing of the restore. I think that should be a separate process in every company, that someone is in charge of regularly testing the full functionality of the restore process, so that you can be definitely sure to be able to rely on your backups and archives, and that you get your files back when you need them.
Absolutely. In fact, most new administrators, when they walk in, they're famous for saying, okay, do a test restore for me. And if that fails, boys, they're egg on everyone's face. So it's a good thing to get ready for sure.
The benefits of the combined solution: Archiware P5 as a software suite and Backblaze B2 as cloud storage. With P5, you have one solution for all platforms. I think we didn't mention that yet. So it works on the Mac, it works on Windows, and it works on Linux. And additionally, you can run it on a number of NAS platforms like QNAP, Synology, Netgear, LumaForge, and others. So you can install it on those machines and go from there to Backblaze and archive things away or backup things away. It has a browser interface for all modules, so you only have one interface that helps you to configure and run, archive and restore, and that's all happening in the browser. It's extremely cost-effective cloud backup and recovery with B2, so you have only the pay-as-you-go model and can grow anytime. You can restore individual, not chunks, but actually files, so you can drill down any directory and can take from a small still image to a text file to a big video clip. Doesn't matter, anything can be pulled anytime. Automated archiving is available in the solution, so you can specify a drop folder and a schedule if you want to. And data migration is also built in, so we built this in originally for tape to migrate from one generation to the other, but this also works in other storage criteria to migrate from one to the other storage.
Say maybe tape to cloud?
Yeah, exactly. So yes, parallelization for speed and scalability is built in. There's the one-click restore and the long-term data storage in the cloud with B2 and their ever-growing storage capabilities, and they will even have ambitious plans to grow to other continents, what I heard recently.
Perhaps. But with that, this brings us to a special announcement you've been stating.
Yeah, that's true. There's another connection apart from Archiware P5. It's called Pure. It's a separate product from us, and there will be a specific a new version that supports B2 storage, which means you can back up VMware virtual machines to B2 storage. Extremely easy, and have a single file restore, which is rare from what I hear about the solutions. And Pure in this version with B2 will be available soon. You can already download a trial version which does not yet support B2 but will be soon, and we wanted to use this announcement here to let you know in advance that this is coming up.
To get ready. Well, that's this has been a tremendously requested feature, and I know our two teams have been working very hard on getting this ready. And as soon as it is ready, would love to do a webinar like this and help show it.
Yes, we'll do so. And so in wrapping up, we can say that Archiware P5 is extremely easy to use, very powerful, gives you one interface for cloning, archive, and backup, and makes it extremely easy to specifically protect the storage and files with its specific methods that are most efficient for, and connects easily to B2 as we saw.
Absolutely. It's I love how Archiware P5 is scalable. As you say, you can install it on very small NAS devices, all the way up to a workstation, or even multiple servers or workstations if your need is very large. So that's wonderful. And as you say, Backblaze B2 is integrated into Archiware. And customers love how it's the perfect place to not only capture their backup files or be a part of a 3-2-1 strategy that gets content offsite, secure, highly reliable, and there when you need it. We're very pleased to be working with you. So we do offer these other resources as well. We mentioned earlier an earlier webinar that we did about that takes you through in more granular steps exactly how to install and set up one of these solutions. And you, I believe, literally wrote the book on data management, backup, and archive for media professionals.
Yeah, that's true. It's available in the iBook store at Apple or in iTunes. you can search for the title, or here's the link in the PDF, and you can watch the replay of the 3 steps to a self-serve media archive with Archiware and B2. And we have 2 other articles here that we'd like to feature, and you will have access to the PDF as someone who registered for this webinar, and we will also send you the link for the replay as soon as we have it online available.
Wonderful. Okay, if you're ready for questions, here is, there's 2 that are related for you, sir. The first is, could you explain how the trial license works for P5?
Yeah, so there are actually 2 options that you have. So I said you download the installer from our webpage and select your respective platform, being it Mac, Windows, Linux, or some NAS systems. And this installer contains all the modules, and you can license them separately, but you can request either a 5-day trial with just giving us an email address, or a 30-day trial of all the features and everything unlimited when you give us a full company address and email so that we can contact you. And this is available from within the application interface. So you download it, you run the installer, and then the interface opens up, and there's this request or get trial license button that you see in the lower right-hand corner of the interface to get started immediately.
Wonderful. Similarly for Backblaze B2, you can sign up with just an email, and up to 10 gigs are free as you sort of get your systems in place and pilot systems. And then beyond that, if you enter a credit card, it's only $5 a terabyte, and you're only charged for what you actually use. So very nice and easy way to get started on both solutions. Okay, so the next question is, after a successful trial, of course, is how do you charge, what is the pricing for the combined solution? So I think we covered B2. How about P5?
Yeah, so first we have an online price calculator. If you go to archiware.com and select P5 as the product range, then you have in the menu the product configurator, where you can put in any requirements that you might have. So maybe just backup and the size that you plan to put in the cloud, or backup and archive together, and maximum storage, whatever it is. You can calculate your most efficient and cheapest license combination there. And as a ballpark number, I can tell you it starts around $1,000 for the backup module alone with no storage for something like a single tape drive, and $1,820 gives you the backup module, server clients, and 100 terabyte of cloud storage that you can use. Or you can split that if you have physical devices that you want to have an additional backup, then you can split up the 100 terabytes and say 50 terabytes here and 50 terabytes there. So this is up to you. So around $1,800 the 100 terabyte package, and from there it goes on. You can include archive to backup, and there's a full enterprise bundle if you want to have all the bundles and unlimited storage as well. So there's lots of options here, and you have the online price calculator available anytime online.
That's great. That's great. Let's see. Here's there's a question for Backblaze. Does Backblaze have an EU data center? Well, I can say that we don't have anything to announce today, but this is a really highly requested feature, a customer request, and I will say that nothing to announce today, but we hope to have some very exciting news shortly, shall I say. And here we are almost in August, and next month is the IBC conference. So I would say watch the skies.
That sounds very promising.
One other question, a clarification, I suppose. How does P5 work with SAN or NAS? So we discussed shared storage, and so how would you answer that?
So as I mentioned before, P5 is running on Mac, Windows, and Linux, and also on NAS platforms, which means in the app center of QNAP and in the app center of Synology, and with the app solutions of Netgear, you can download P5 in their specific versions on their platform to install directly on your device, so that it runs on the QNAP, Synology, and Netgear device, or LumaForge in another case. And you can use it then as either the P5 server, which means this is the machine that actually triggers everything and that has the configuration, or you use it as P5 client, which means there's a dedicated data management server that has P5 and it just has a connection to the NAS or SAN system to manage the data and push it around. So both things are available. You need to install it anyway. And if you put in a license, it becomes the server. If you don't put in a license and have the license sitting somewhere else, it becomes a client for another P5 server.
That's great. And and as far as the files on even very large SANs or NASs, you can simply define source and target folders or volumes, et cetera. So in that respect, if it's accessible to the client or the workstation, then you can fold it into this automated, regular, repeatable backup and archive.
Yes, and additionally, you can manage it from any workstation within your network, because you can just log into the web interface of the P5 server from any workstation.
Very nice. Absolutely, yeah. Wonderful to help pull out those best practices and learn from all the customers you help and the ones we help as well. And definitely look forward to the next one. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Skip, and bye-bye to everyone.
Cheers.